That said, we're going to bring on Milton Lopez from Navigate. We're going to talk a little bit of Navigate this morning. Excited about this one. So it's funny, like this is going to be a sponsored interview. We talk about, we're always upfront about that. But like, again, we're very discerning about who comes on the show when. We've actually talked to them before. And I think it's going to be exciting to talk a little bit about what, first of all, electric mustache coming off Milton. So right off the bat, we're feeling really good about this. Thanks for your patience. I know we went a little long on the IP right things there, but excited to talk Navigate. So Milton, before we get fully into Navigate and talk about,
we're gonna talk mustaches before we talk Navigate.
Yeah, I'm here for that.
Yeah, there's a we're gonna spend, we could spend 45 minutes on mustaches, trust me. But that said, before we get fully into Navigate and everything you're doing from a data perspective, because I think it is something that we talk about from an NFT perspective in my book, it's something that I'm passionate about. Give your background and a little bit of the background of the team, because I think people, it's always, we love hearing how people get into Web3 and understanding how they think before we even dive deep.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thanks for having me on. This is a pleasant surprise that there's video. Usually I'm behind a screen and nobody gets to see the mustache. So happy to be on here. Happy to talk about that.
Your war chat. Steve thought I was kidding, but I genuinely want to talk facial hair with you.
I'm here for it. I mean, if there's time for some navigating between the conversation, great. If not, let's just go on full mustache.
We can save that for an end. We're getting off to a little late start, so we'll save the mustache. Everyone who also has beard envy with me, you got to stick around to the end of the show to get the mustache alpha.
Absolutely. All right. So Navigate. Let's talk about that. Where did we start? Why are we here? Where did we come from? I am a co-founder. My other co-founder, he and I have been working together for the last 11 years, and our background isn't in Web3. He's been in Web3 for a long time. Mine is not. I'm in Web2, traditional enterprise, AI sales, and primarily just developing systems for industrial equipment. And that doesn't sound very exciting, but essentially it's how you keep machines running for longer than they have been in the past. This is aircraft, this is power production systems, etc. And the whole idea is you've got this AI system that is able to predict the future and is able to help you ensure that this thing runs forever. So that was what I've done in the past. And how does that relate to what we're doing now? Essentially, the problem that we always run into was data. We don't have enough data. We don't have the right data. We don't have clean enough data. And so without data, AI does not function. It cannot learn. It cannot do anything. And so the whole idea with Navigate is how can we crowdsource? How can we curate data sets from the source themselves? And that's you, that's me, that's everybody that's online doing anything. They are creating data. Today, that data is captured by the service they're interacting with. And that's essentially who has that differentiator. It's the Amazon, it's the retailer that you're interacting with, it's the different services that you subscribe to. The more you interact with them, the more data you generate. And the more data you generate, the more valuable that organization becomes, simply because that's the differentiator. That is what makes one succeed and one not, is how much insight they can gain from that data. And so from the beginning, our approach has been, how do we give that power back into the individuals that are creating that data itself? How do we put the control back into the data creators, which is ourselves, which is where Navigate comes from? And so Ali and I, the other co-founder, from the beginning, it's what is the type of data that is most meaningful, what is the type of data that's more accessible, and what is the type of data that's easier to monetize? Because at the end of the day, the objective from our perspective at Navigate is to say, you create your data, you as an individual, that data is not so valuable. It's pretty minimal, it's not generalizable, it doesn't tell a very good story. But if we're, sorry about that, looks like my phone, okay. But if we're coming in and we're pooling everybody's data together, now we've got something of value. And what that is, what we have there is the ability to curate that data set and now take it to market and now offer it to these enterprises that are used to buying data from the likes of Amazon, the likes of Meta, Bright Data, different organizations that capture that data today. So that is what Navigate is. You come onto Navigate, you contribute your data, you opt into the services you want to. Everything's super transparent. That was one of the key elements that we wanted to maintain, being very transparent. You upload your data, and that's an automated workflow within our extension that we have. And then we do the rest. We clean it. We look for somebody who's interested in this data. We license the data, and a portion of the money that's captured through that licensing comes back to the individual that contributed the data. And so there's two ways. As soon as you upload data, as soon as the system uploads data, you get rewarded. And as soon as we monetize that data, then you get rewarded again. And every time we continue to license that data, you just continue to see that stream of income come back to you.
I love that. So I have so many questions on this because like this is
Sure.
exciting to me. I think it's a great idea and platform and sort of use case for this because we don't own our data and it is something that is an opportunity. And it's almost like a sister of stable coins where when someone's like, how do stable coins give yield? This seems like a big scam. I'm like, well, you know how your bank uses all your money to make more money? Imagine if they shared a little bit with you instead of like 0.001%. Is that like a fair analogy to basically say what you're doing with data? Instead of collecting it and selling it and keeping everything, you're collecting it, you're selling it, and you're sharing that profit with the person using it. Is that like a fair analogy or is that off?
Absolutely. The whole idea is this flywheel of you contribute a little bit of data. I'm going to show you how valuable that is by giving you back a little bit of the reward. And the more you contribute, the more you earn. So it is essentially like that. The more data that is quality data that you contribute, that we can monetize, the more that you will earn today and into the future as we continue to license that same data.
And how do you decide? So like right off the bat, you mentioned you had this like banger that like almost I don't want to let go under, which is like, it's not just about the data, it's how you use it and parse it. It's what matters, right? Because I think a lot of people think we need more data. And then you have this giant data set and you know, there's sort of this famous story back in the day of like, you know, two companies that had the same amount of data. I think a British company and another company. And one of those companies used it to make this horrible show and the other one used it to make House of Cards because Kevin Spacey disavow. But regardless, they used it to make House of Cards, right? And so like the idea is like you can use the same data, but it's like you can give me a basketball and you can give LeBron James a basketball. We're going to use it a little bit differently. So how do you decipher the actual usage of what makes what data useful versus what data is just noise, or how do you break it down?
Yeah, that's a great question. Part of our ecosystem involves bringing in developers, and ultimately the way that you are able to train your AI systems on that data that's generated, the way you're able to clean that data and the heuristics that you apply within that in order to make sure that what you want the AI entity, let's call it an AI agent, what you want the AI agent to learn is easily discoverable within that data. That's the biggest thing. If you're asking a question that cannot be solved by that data, then it's pointless because you have the wrong data. If you're asking a question where it's very difficult to solve because it has to go through a bunch of hoops, you haven't pre-processed that data enough. So there's the data acquisition, and then there's the massaging of the data to get it to the point where it tells a story that you want to hear, or it tells a story that you want to tell with that data. And that's the biggest thing that well, one is the quality of the data is the biggest issue, but secondly is how do you process, how do you ask the right questions to that data? And that's how you get a system that responds how you would expect an AI system to do. You typically what we think of AI is this almost godlike creature that you can ask anything to and it responds in this magical way. The only way that happens is one, you have a very good demo, but in the real world, the only way that happens is if you have the right data, if you've trained it properly, and if you're scoping it to only answer the types of questions that you have data for. And so, to your original question, when we look at how we curate this data, it's with that in mind. It's what problems are we looking to solve to begin with? And you could boil the ocean, you're not going to get very far because if anybody's tried to boil the ocean, it takes a long time. The way that we look at this is we're going to start with retail. Retail is an area that pretty much everybody in the world has something to contribute. I don't know, there's probably some remote places where they don't use the internet to buy on Amazon, but for the majority of the places, there is e-commerce data available. You buy things online, you have some sort of shopping history. So we start there. We say we want to be as inclusive as possible. We're going to start with the shopping data history of your purchases. That's you can contribute. Now comes in the developers that I mentioned within our community. These developers are working on AI agents. These developers are working on insight systems. These developers are working on any sort of AI system that they can get their hands on. And their one objective is, how can I make some money off of this data? How can I make an interface, because that's essentially what we're talking here. How can I make an interface that relies on artificial intelligence that solves a real problem for somebody? And if you can do that, then there's somebody willing to pay some money for it. And so what we're doing is we're cleaning up the data, we're putting it in a way where it's easy to access, where it's easy to consume, and where it's not going to be expensive for anybody because essentially they're part of the ecosystem. Okay, now you've got a thing, an AI agent, an AI system that we can jointly go out into the world and say, retail customer number one, we have a solution to your problem. Let me just show you what it is. It's already got data in it. It's got data that you can't acquire today because it comes from some of your competitors. And now you're able to ask it questions, or now you're able to employ that into your workflow and get some higher sales, better insights, better understanding of your consumers, any number of things that these e-commerce systems are looking for today.
Talk about how you gather the data from individuals and honestly how individuals can participate. They're like, oh my God, this sounds great. Finally. And I have an example in the book that I wrote about your healthcare data and how like people swab their mouth, they send it to 23andMe, and then 23andMe says, good, we're going to charge you money, and then we're going to make millions of dollars selling your data on the back end. Congratulations, like you paid us to make money on you. So this model is broken in that way, at least with like Facebook, X, whatever. You get a service out of it. I guess you do in this one to a degree. They kind of give you some data about your background, but how do you gather the data, and then how can people participate if they want to?
Yeah. We simplified it to the point where it's an extension. So you go to the Chrome web store or any Chromium-based browser, the extension store, and you go to Navigate Rewards. You download this extension. You sign up. It's basically an email and password that you enter, and it gives you a list of options that you have available to you. As I mentioned before, the aspirations are large at Navigate to capture every type of data in the world, but you got to start somewhere. So we're focused on retail today. And so when you install it and you log in, you'll see that there is a list of 6, 7, 8 different data connections, which we call them. These are online services. We've got Amazon, Etsy, eBay, we have Flipkart, we have Shopee, Lazada's coming, I think, tomorrow or the day after. So we're constantly adding to these connections, and you simply click on the ones that you want to opt into. Now, the thing that I'll say here is I don't want anybody's credentials. We do not want anybody's personal identifiable information, any credentials to any of these services. So what the extension does is it basically just piggybacks off of an open session on your browser already. So if you go to your favorite browser on your device and you go to Amazon.com, if you've logged in the past, you're going to just drop in and you're going to be logged in this time around. Same with any of these services. They store a session that says you're logged in. This is what our system does. It looks for it. It says, I'm going to open up Amazon. If it's connected to some account, fantastic. If it's not, I'm going to tell you, please connect to some account and let me know when you have. And so that's one thing that we've done very purposefully, is ensure that we are not storing any of our users' information, any of their credentials, because we don't need that information for us to be able to monetize this data. And so we don't want that information. We are only looking for that information which we feel can be valuable and nothing more. We're not looking for a grab everything because we have one shot to do it, because of the fact that we're building this network that allows us to go back to our users time and time again and say, hey, we've got additional connections. You want to sign up for them? Yes? No? It's perfectly fine. So because of that, we don't have to go in and grab as much data as we can day one, because maybe sometime in the future we'll need it. And so that's why we're doing it only what we need, only what we think is monetizable, and nothing more, to ensure that everybody is as safe as possible.
I was going to share the extension, but I don't think I'm able to do that. If anyone knows how I can share extensions via screen share, let me know. But like, just for instance, in mine, I have my active connections are Amazon and Reddit. I don't ever post in Reddit. Every once in a while, I'll go read a post or something I see somewhere else, and I'll click through. And then the only thing, I have my Amazon account active. I see it pulled in my purchase history, but I haven't bought anything recently. Is that like I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I don't shop on eBay or Etsy or the others. So like for myself, I've got Reddit and Amazon connected. Do I have to think about anything else or anything else I need to be doing? I saw like Quest coming soon, or it's just like when I transact on Amazon, I'm sharing that data with Navigate, and then those rewards will flow my way at some point. Is that?
Yeah, essentially you've done all you need to do. It was download and create an account. That's the hardest part. The rest of it is just sitting there and watching points go up.
It says
go ahead.
I see it says connected. Next Amazon job starting in about 33 hours. What does that mean?
Yes. So what it does is it's not always watching what you're doing. And we do not want to just watch your activities online. What it's doing is it's setting up on a weekly basis. In your case, I suspect that last time you had a sync up with Amazon was on a week ago. So the next one is going to be in about, I would say, a day and a half. You're going to get another check, and what it's going to do is going to say, it's going to open a browser, it's going to open up your order history, and it's going to say, are there any new purchases since the last time I checked? If there are, great. I'll capture the delta, I'll upload that, and I'll close out that browser window. If there are no new purchases, then I'll close it and I'll check again next week. So there's nothing more for the user.
So it'll just be automated. I'm connected, so it's gonna every week or whatever. It's gonna do the connection, do the sync, and I don't have to do anything. It's doing all that for me.
That's it. The only thing that you have to do is when we release updates and we release additional data connections, if you have some of those services, you can opt into them, but you don't have to. So you've done everything that you need to, and now it's just shop, do whatever you want to do. If there's anything that we can monetize on your behalf in terms of the Amazon purchase history, we'll capture it, and then you'll get rewarded for it. And as I mentioned before, we reward you for the initial contribution of that data. And then when we sell that data, we license that data to anybody, then you will receive additional rewards based off of those sales. So it's on us to go off and sell that in order to continue to give you more rewards.
I've got more questions. Go ahead, Steve.
I was going to say, can you talk about how some of the clients will use this data once you provide it to them? So I connect my Amazon history. I am a big-time Amazon shopper. I have the credit card because it's 5% off. I use it a ton. It's literally like my lazy button where I'm like, I need to get this. I could drive to the store, or if I order it by tonight, by tomorrow morning, it's going to be here. So it's like my perfect lazy button. How will they use that data once they get it from me? Because I'm going to be giving a fuck ton of Amazon data. But like, how are they going to see my data? And yeah, I know. And you're like, perfect. It's exactly what we need. Me, my kids, everything. One, how are they going to use that data? And two, does it matter that my wife and I have like this mixed thing, or I guess all data is good data because it's going to be relevant to me, my daughter, and everybody else? Does building that profile work, and how do they use it?
Yeah, absolutely. How they use it, that depends. We're still in that discovery mode. What we do know is that predicting demand is a big thing, and predicting demand across multiple e-commerce is a big thing. And so if you're looking at this, I wouldn't use Amazon as a good candidate to use this data, because Amazon has all the data in the world and they don't need any more data from anybody else. What I will say is that the smaller Amazon, the let's say a retailer that's not as big, doesn't have the differentiator in terms of data. They are looking for an edge. They are looking for, what are the opportunities for me to, let's say, get a little more market share from an Amazon or from a more established enterprise. And the question there is, what are the products that sell? When do they sell? Where do they sell? That's just at a high level. If you can answer that question, you're going to solve a lot of problems for a lot of smaller e-commerce shops. And so the example that you gave, you're a household, okay? You represent a household with your account. You don't represent an individual, and that's okay. Maybe in the future we will want to do something like that, and we will figure out a way to say, hey, Steve, now I've got an update. Would you be willing to provide a little more demographic information? Okay, if you want to opt in, fantastic. If not, no big deal. Right now, we don't need that data, so we're not asking that from you. We're just saying, as at a high level, on a household basis, just by the zip code is all we're using to kind of figure out in the area of these purchases, what does the activity look like? What does the activity look like in December? What does the activity look like in January, sometime in the summer? Do we see an uptick in specific type of consumption for different products? Can we model that? Can we try to predict what's going to be the next trend? Can we figure out, if I've got to purchase product A or product B, where is my money best spent in terms of inventory? Those are the types of questions that retailers are looking to answer today. They simplified it, but there's a lot more that goes into that. But essentially, what is the behavior of consumers at a very high level, and what little edge can I get off of that and get maybe a few, I don't know, half a percentage point in market share?
Yeah. Okay. Are you worried, I guess, then? You mentioned Amazon has all the data in the world. They do. Are you worried about these companies finding reasons to block you if you become too successful, where they're going to try to block the APIs or the ability to connect accounts that way? Because, one of the things that Web2 companies love is their data moats, and you're essentially bringing the power back to the people there. Do you worry about blocking from companies like an Amazon or these large major companies?
Absolutely. That was a concern, and I'd say that's probably always going to be a concern. If you get successful, and which again, if we have that problem, I think we're in a good position. If we're looked at as a potential threat, great. I mean, what we're doing here is we're saying the individual that owns their data, they can contribute that data. And so when somebody comes to me and says, well, I can get my mom's account and I can get my aunt's account, well, maybe just focus on yours because you are legally able to capture your data and extract it from this system because it's your data, you generated it, and you're willingly able to contribute it to Navigate. That's not the case with other people's data. You can't just go in and log into somebody else's account and take their data because that's where you get into the gray area, or I would say probably not even gray. It's just that's not an appropriate thing to do. So what we're saying is you, Steve, you, Captain, you are able to log into your own accounts and you're able to give me contribute willingly this data that you own. And so at that point, it's not really Amazon's place to say, well, that's my data. It's not, because I'm only asking for the individual that generated the data. I'm not asking you for anybody else's data. I'm not proactively going out and grabbing anybody else's data. I'm only saying I'm enabling you as a user to contribute the data that is already yours.
Yeah, I would love to hear. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just that's the thinking, and that's how we've gotten around this concern. And we have had legal questions, and they've vetted that this approach makes sense as long as we focus on the individual that's generating the data.
Yeah, it'll be funny to hear the mental gymnastics if you grow big enough from like Amazon to say like, oh, well, like we're protecting our users by blankety blank. And it's like, oh, you're protecting me by not allowing me to have control over my own data. And that could lead to some really like there could be some very interesting discussions legally and regulatory wise based on this sort of conversation, because like I feel like companies are going to try to find reasons to not share that data with companies like, Navigate. And then there's going to be a pushback from consumers as they understand it. So this will be an interesting one to hear them spin, because if I put myself in the corporate world, I'm like, well, this is our data is our moat. Obviously X, like even when you want to download your X data, it takes like days to say your data file, and they give you this really unusable data file. And it's like, they almost seemingly, I don't want to say they do, make it intentionally difficult to parse. So with that information, you mentioned the AI agents. Did you have to build obviously platform specific things? Is it difficult? Do they make it difficult to parse through the data once you get through this connection, or is the connection actually make it relatively seamless for y'all because of how it's done right now? Because I imagine you'd have to plan for the future for them to make it super difficult and hard to decode.
Yeah. So what I would say to that, there are two pieces to that. One is the gymnastics that we will inevitably have to jump through. Yes. What we're doing to support with that is the positioning around the data that we capture is that it's ethically sourced data. And so you can think of this as ethically trained AI. You have an individual that has opted into contributing their data, and that is why that this data is, yes, it's the same as it was before they captured it, but now they have blessed it that they themselves are willing to contribute that data. And there's a little bit of, let's say, a PR spin to that, where it's a higher pedigree of data simply because the individual that generated it, they willingly contributed to you. And so for enterprises outside of the service that you originally, the e-commerce service that you originally generated that data from, anybody else that uses it can have that as well, that the data that they're consuming, the data that they're using has been sourced ethically from the individual that contributed it. That's one piece. The other question that you said is, how do we capture this data, and what is the method of going in and extracting this data from a system such as these e-commerce sites that we discussed? What we do, and if you look at the extension running, it's very similar to how you would go and view your search history. And it's no different. You're opening an order history and you're scrolling down and you're looking at the content within that screen. It isn't tying into any backend system. It isn't doing anything more than just what a user does already, which is open a web page, scroll, look, okay, no new search, no new purchases, move on. I'll check again next week. And so we do that for a few reasons. We don't want it to be very dependent on the individual service that we're connecting to, because, as I mentioned before, our ambitions are grand. If we start doing custom development work for each site that we're trying to connect to, it's going to take us a long time to go anywhere outside of retail. So we've purposely said a generic approach of mimicking what a user would do: go to a site, read the site, look if there's a delta. If there's a delta, capture those little pieces of information that are relevant, and I'm out of there. The browser closes down, and I'll check again next week. What that allows us to do is to generalize that approach across different systems, because again, we as humans have a very, I would say, a very common way of doing this across different e-commerce systems. I go to my orders, I go to recent activity, something that sounds like that. Okay, I click on that, and then I'm going to scroll, and it's going to probably be sorted by chronological order. It's going to say the newest things on top, and there's a picture. Usually, there's a description, there's a title, there's a price, and that's about all I get. Sometimes I get a little bit more information in terms of the color, but that's it. I can assume that any e-commerce site that I go to, regardless of where it is going to present the information in that similar fashion. So if I can have a system that is looking for that type of information, then I can have a very generalizable approach to collecting this information on behalf of the user, because I am mimicking what the user would do.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. I guess
It's
like
dangerous though, Steve. It's dangerous. I've just come to the realization that they've gamified shopping. I've never had the desire to go buy more things on Amazon just to buy things on Amazon. Until now, I see I have 918 entries, and my brain hasn't turned, like, now it's a challenge to 1,000. Like, I feel like I must rush out and buy 82 orders on Amazon today just so I can break 4 figures.
82. I was
You
gonna
laugh
say
at that.
82 individual everything token books would be great if you want to buy those.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Milton.
No, I was going to say, you laugh at that. My co-founder and I, we did this. We had the Amazon connection established, and then we looked at it and we're like, I need to stop buying so much on Amazon, one. But two, how come you have 50 products more than I do? And so I went off and I bought 50 individual toothpick packs, and now we're on par. So yes, I agree. The gamification of this, and there's a reason why we haven't put out leaderboards that indicate how many products everybody has, because that's not a good habit that we're looking to develop there.
It's kind of surprising to me that Amazon has never gamified shopping. Now that I see this, like, it is the stupidest thing ever. I don't need, like, no one in the world cares if I've made 1,000 purchases on Amazon, except for my stupid degen brain that thinks I need to hit a round number. Like, I don't know if it's OCD. I don't know what this is, but I'm literally 8 billion people. I'm the only person that cares what my Amazon stats are, but it'll manipulate me. Like, the fact that Amazon hasn't gamified shopping that might be their biggest miss. I didn't realize it until just now. But yeah, I've got a new challenge to complete this week, Steve.
Yeah, sorry about that. We're gonna hit your wallet there. I don't think they need to. I mean, if you look at them, they're quite successful without gamifying it, and the whole approach has been
the game is
minimal.
How late can I order to get something delivered today? That's
Absolutely.
The game. Like, it's like, if you order this in the next 27 minutes, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna push it to like 25 and 30, and then I'll start the order.
Yep. It gets to the point where if you order this in the next hour, you're gonna get it in 30 minutes. It's like, wait a minute, is that how do I get it before I order it? Anyway, that's the power of AI, right? Predictions. They know that you're going to order something, so it's already waiting on outside your door before you actually click the button.
I've actually accepted and am happy with that model where I'm like, you know what I want before I need it. Like, how did you know I'm out of stuff? I did. I used to like, I don't know. I used to like kind of like poo-poo it. Now I'm like, whatever. Like, I am out of multivitamins and they're right. So let's just fucking do it. One thing you touched on there that I think is important, by the way, people want to know, like, Milton, how do you have more orders? 2 words, mustache wax. But my question,
you do not believe how fast that goes.
Really? That's it. It's funny. It's like, they need a combination. You got great hair too. They need a combo mustache wax hair product, and that would be a killer for you. Maybe your next business. But you mentioned a couple of things there that I want to dig in on too as well, because you've mentioned talking about how you're getting the data, how you're parsing the data. How do you ensure the data you're holding has proper customer security? Because I think like that's always a concern with all these companies, is that there's not proper security. Like, the ethos of your company tells me that I feel pretty good that you're not just going to go ahead and rip and sell my data, because the whole business model you have is not related to that. But how do you ensure sort of the security and integrity there?
Yeah. And if by security integrity, you mean how we store the data to ensure that it doesn't go into the hands of somebody we don't want it to go. One is, like I mentioned before, personal identifiable information is not something we're interested in right now. It's not something that we want to monetize. And because of that, we don't have anything. And if somebody were to get access to the data, all they would see is that there are a lot of mustache wax orders in Texas around Thursday afternoon. And again, if they get that, it's unfortunate, but we purposely made sure that there's no way to tracing it back to the individual, that there's nothing that individual needs to be concerned with, because at the end of the day, they're all just statistics, they're aggregated numbers, and that's what somebody would see. That being said, we ensure, and again, I'm not going to go into the level of security that we go into to keep our data safe, because I would do disjustice to the team that does that. So I'm just going to say that is a concern. That is a priority for us, is ensuring that we are trustworthy. Because at the end of the day, if we're not trustworthy, then it's unlikely that somebody is going to contribute their data to us. So we ensure that we are taking the best practices to ensure the data is secure, the connections are secure, and as a fail-safe for everything is we're not capturing any information that would connect the data back to you, or that you wouldn't want out there, because it's just some person buying mustache wax and he's overpaying for it. But that's about all. That's all they get.
How one of the questions I always am curious about is, like, this makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense on blockchain, understandably so. So I think that tie-in is pretty natural. But why, when you were looking for the platform to launch this on, like, obviously, like, there's Base, there's, like, how do you choose the blockchain partner and why?
Absolutely. We're on Base, and the reason we're on Base is, well, there's a few reasons. One is there's a heavy builder mentality, long-term mentality, and that's essentially, it goes exactly with what our business model is. We want an individual to make money, to make tokens, to get rewards years and years after they've contributed that data. Because if they're doing that, that means that we ourselves are doing a pretty good job of monetizing that data. And so we want a partner that is here for the long run. We want a partner that is here, that is trusted. And from everything that's out there, Base is the most trusted partner within the let's say the enterprise systems. It isn't the scrutiny that they're under, the regulation that they have to, all the hoops that they have to jump through, makes it to where it is very difficult for them to do things that they shouldn't. And because of that, if we're going towards traditional 100-year-old enterprises that are very conservative, we don't want them to get the slightest indication that this is a risk, that this is new technology, that it's unproven, that this unregulated, that they could get in trouble for even interacting with us. And so the decision to go on Base was, they've got a builder mentality. It's a long-term play. They're in it for the long run, as well as they're a trusted partner within enterprises that ensures that when we go to them and we say we have data, and Base is the partner that we are using as infrastructure here, there's no red flags there.
Yeah, got it. Makes sense. I think I love a lot of the layer twos. I'm a big fan of Base though, because I think Base has great infrastructure support. And it's like, again, we talk about ones that you want to make sure are not going anywhere. I think Base is a pretty safe bet. Talk about the token integration, and that's how you distribute rewards, what that looks like. Talk about the token and that part of the equation, because obviously that's a part that I think it's one of the great parts, as a side note, about Navigate that I really enjoy, is that you don't lead with the token. We talked about leading with token earlier and being like token. It's not about leading with the token. It's about leading with the product, leading with what it does for the consumer, and the token makes sense. Talk about that part of it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you bringing that up. The reason that the token isn't the most important piece of this is because without the business, there's no value in the token. There's no longevity. It is all about the business, and the token is just a way of exchanging value to the contributor. And the way we see this is, if we have a successful business, which is what we're 100% focused on, then the token will take care of itself, because that is simply reflective of the health of the business. Right now, we're working on these sales. We're working on inventorying the data, getting it to a place where we can get it in front of enterprises, get some licenses going. When that happens, that's going to be the thing to talk about. It's, this business is going somewhere. This business has data sales. This business has this many data contributions. That is what we are. The token is just a byproduct of that. The success of the business will indicate that the token will go where it needs to go. And so that's how we view the token today. It isn't the focal point. I mean, I say that, but having TGE happen last week, It has been the focal point because it has to be, and it drains all of your energy. But now it's all about the product again. And so the way that we use this token is a mechanism to reward the individual contributors. In Web3, people know tokens. That is what they're looking for. That is the unit that they can hold on to and they can do something with. And because of that, it's very important for us to say, Navigate is a business that requires quality data. What we're willing to do today is to capture that data, accept that data that you're contributing it, and we will reward you in tokens. And the promise here is that these tokens will reflect the success of the business. And because of that, you can rest assured that the value you hold today will only grow if you believe in the business, and if you yourself are contributing quality data, and if you yourself are contributing the type of data that can get monetized. If those things are true, then this token is going to be worth something a lot more than it is today in the future. And so that's why when we're looking at this, the token allows for the individual to get rewarded. The token allows for us as a Navigate to take the earnings from these license deals and to buy back some of these tokens to ensure that the price of the token aligns with the health of the company. So there's the different ways that it incentivizes the developers within our ecosystem. This is a way that we're able to share a little bit of Navigate and share the health of Navigate to the individual that's contributing in building that organization.
Got it. No, I think it makes sense. Like I said, like there are a lot of, well, again, you didn't lead with farm TGE, do this. You led with, we have a product that is going to bring, I mean, we had you briefly on the show. It was like a busy show that day, but I remember we had you jump up prior to TGE and we're like, look, it's a product that is actually doing a service that I think is going to fundamentally shift, and blockchain can fundamentally shift alongside AI the way that we interact with our favorite brands and give beneficial to both, but bring the consumers more into the fold where we're not just spenders who people look at as give us your money, but a way to kind of build things together. Now, you mentioned retail. I think retail is an obvious market, especially the United States. When you look at our GDP and what we do here, where I'm sure like a lot of your focus is, retail is an obvious first market. It is a broad ranging category where you can find a lot of places. I want to dive into potential categories, but before we even do that, are there sectors of retail that you found are probably the places that you're most willing to, or you're most likely to concentrate based on the data that you're seeing early on? Was there anything that surprised you? And or is it just about building a good consumer profile and that can go a variety of different places?
Yeah, the decisions there's a few factors that pull us in different directions. One is, where are our contributors? Because we can have all the aspirations in the world to capture data in a specific geographical location, but if we don't have representation there from a community perspective, it's pointless. And so when we look at this, we're saying, where is the community distributed, and what is the prevalent data in those regions? And we'll start with it. We'll start with that. When we do that, we are doing two things. One is we're targeting the early contributors and giving them the most opportunities for them to earn rewards, but we're also maximizing the data that we can collect from the community that exists today. And what we do with that data is now we target the e-commerce, the retailers within those locations in order to get a few wins, because we're not looking to get rich day one. What we're looking to is prove the model, prove the value of the data, prove the insights that you can generate, as well as have some case studies with these early customers that say, was this able to move the needle? And that's all we need. If we're able to prove the business case, we're able to prove the model in these small pockets throughout the world, then the rest becomes a lot easier, because what we've seen is, for, let's say, in the US or in Europe or any of these other developed countries that already have an established high GDP, it is very difficult to motivate anybody to do anything. If you're able to prove this model, and if you're able to prove the value of this data, then it's a lot easier, because it isn't take my word for it and give me a chance. It's, look, I've got some examples that I've done on a smaller scale. I've done examples where it's moved the needle for these retailers, and you have the same problems that they do. And so from our perspective, think of it as a proof of concept. It's a start small, start in the areas that we can have a foothold because the community already is there. And those will be the stories that we can tell to expand into the areas that are a little more difficult to get to, or where it takes more to convince somebody to download an extension and contribute some of their data.
How do you By the way, let me know if you have a hard stop because I have like a couple more questions because this is
No,
like,
I'm good.
so this is like this whole concept is fascinating to me. So how do you ensure that, like, because one of the tricky parts is how do you ensure you vet partners properly? Because like you can have a bunch of data about my vitamin regimen and suddenly there's some like predatory healthcare company that says, let me get in and try to sell this guy something he doesn't need. So how do you ensure that you're vetting partners, that you're keeping the integrity of the data? Or is it just, look, the data is going to be out there regardless, so we're going to sell it and give you a piece of it, and at least then you're getting a taste of that? Like, what is that?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned before, they can't find you, and if you're out of vitamins, they don't know where you are other than your zip code. But that's going to be hard for them to actually find you and target you. That's one thing I'll say. The other one is we don't just want to have this out there and have bad stories come back to us about how this data was used. Again, if we lose credibility early on, it's hard to recover from that. So we're being very selective of the organizations that we partner with, and we're very, very selective in the types of use cases that they're going to use this data for that same purpose. In the future, the objective that we have is to grow this to the point where we have, think of this as a reputation within our system, that Steve, you come in here and you're contributing data on a daily basis or every week, and your data is fantastic. You're contributing data from all sorts of services that you subscribe to. You are a good candidate for, let's say, a representative of Navigate. And so when we have a good understanding of what our community is contributing, when we have a good understanding of the good actors, the not so good actors, then we can give that power back to the community and say, here are the opportunities. Here are the things that we can do with this data. Now let's try to vote on what to pursue, what to focus on. And that's where it's not necessarily Navigate indicating what we're going to do. It's Navigate providing the options to the community and saying, here is what we can do. Here's the upside, here's the downside. Let's figure out what we want to do. And that's where we start getting away from this, what are you doing with my data, and more towards, what are we doing with our data?
Got it. Makes sense. You said retail, so I got to ask, like, logical other industries you would potentially look into? Are there, like, beyond retail? It's a big one to start on. It makes a lot of sense, but where would you see this playing out maybe in your next one and then ultimately in the future, like the sort of big audacious goal?
Yeah. So retail, I've already explained why. It's easy. Everybody has it. So we would probably go to the next logical step, which is entertainment. Again, it's easy. Everybody has it. There's a push to go mobile, and when you go mobile, there's a different type of data that you're accessing there. So health information, steps, that information that today is captured on your devices, that's a potential. But ultimately, it's a balance between what are users willing to contribute and what is enterprise willing to pay for. And because if we don't have both of those pieces to the puzzle, then that data set is useless, because there's a hungry shopper that's looking to buy it. I just have no supply of it. Or on the other side, I have a whole bunch of supply, but I can't find anybody to unload this data on. So I would say that the sweet spot is where it is not personal information, listening, watching, let's say Spotify or Netflix. That is data that the majority of us have. YouTube, watching history, the majority of us have that. And there's interest from enterprise to acquire some of that data. It's I would say that if we're ranking them, that's probably the second one on the list. The only thing that would change that if an enterprise comes in and says, I need this type of data and I am willing to pay for this type of data, then we're going to go out into the community and say, okay, there is a potential for a sale here or license here, and let's just get a poll out there to see who is willing to contribute this type of data, and that's where we will prioritize that.
Any consideration for location data?
Yes.
I've been a client on the enterprise side. You started in the large chain of franchise stores, and I'll send you the competitor information offline. But when you talk about like small box retail and identifying new locations, like I share this because the company I'm aware of that I've worked with in the past, they're not compensating the end users whatsoever. Most end users have no clue that all their location data is being sold, but it's things like that's on most phones. Like 98% of phones are giving this data to these third parties, like weather apps and stuff. That's a lot of them are widgets that's bloatware already baked into your phones. They're turning around and then selling it at extreme premiums to franchise chains to retailers to, and the information is very valuable. Like, it was mind blowing the last demo I got, because it is like where it was 5 years ago to where it is now it's light years. It's extremely valuable for the enterprise space, for the retailers, for those that want the data. But today, to my knowledge, the end users who are basically getting that data, I don't want to say stolen, because they've okayed the T's and C's at some point saying, yeah, you can take this, but they have no knowledge of it. They don't know that there's another company that's making hundreds of millions of dollars off their collective data by turning around in their location data. And it is eerie how, I mean, they know everything. They know, not now, it may not be individualized, but it's it would shock some people if you knew how many organizations know where you're at every waking moment of the day.
Yeah, so that's an absolutely great point. I think
is that on the roadmap,
we should connect after this for sure to get more information on that. But when I was talking about the mobile, that's the purpose, right? With mobile, it goes with you everywhere. It captures this tiny bit of information, very frequent, where if a customer comes in and is looking for that type of data, it's a very easy switch on and say, okay, everybody who's running our mobile app, now you can opt in for this specific data contribution. We're not there yet simply because we're not on mobile. We're primarily focused on the browser-based extension. When you move to mobile, there's a lot more considerations in terms of the data that you can extract and the frequency that you can extract it at, simply because there's a lot more control on the device itself. And I would say if you're looking at Android and Apple would probably be a little more difficult to get that data out of. Android would be a lot easier. So when we get to that, Android is probably going to be first, and then we'll figure out a way that will allow us to comply with Apple's requirements, but capture the information that we need from that side. So yes, that is an excellent point. There's definitely a need for that type of data. It's just the avenue to acquire that data today is a little further out than what our focus has been on.
Awesome. So I guess, like, with that said, like, a lot of good, first of all, great conversation. Appreciate this. Cause I like, this is what's exciting to us, is like things that are actually trying to shift paradigms, not things that are like, hey, let's get the next airdrop grift, right? And this is a very legitimate use case for data aggregation, for AI, for blockchain, and it's actually combining things really well. Is there anything we missed that maybe we didn't ask you this morning that you want to make sure that we hit on related to Navigate? Or what should people do next to get involved? Is it just download the extension and just do some connections?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we've gone in pretty depth in terms of what the platform does, what we're aiming to do with the data, and how it all works. So I think we're good there. How can somebody be a part of it? As I mentioned before, it's a simple download the extension from your Chrome web app store, and the extension store. It's Navigate Rewards. Type that in. It'll be the first one on the list. Download it. Create an account, and just take as many of these services that you feel comfortable sharing, and the rest is on its own. Just keep it on. It'll periodically open up a small browser with a little message saying, hey, Navigate's capturing a little bit of the data. Please don't close this browser. Does its thing automatically and then shuts it down afterwards. That's as simple as it is, and we've tried to make it as simple as that. We've got more material coming out in terms of the more usage, staking a token, etc. But primarily for a person that's trying to come in day one, that's simple. Go download the extension, activate these connections, and you're good to go.
Awesome. Well, look, appreciate you coming on this morning. Really good conversation, Cap. I enjoyed it. I am going to be connecting all the data in the world here that I can, because it's an easy thing. It makes sense. It's actually something that I'm getting farmed on by companies anyway. So why not try to get some rewards for it? My Amazon is, I'm glad that you have good data security, because my Amazon is embarrassing the amount of things that I order from there, because it's like, it's become my go-to, whether it's vitamins, whether it's like, I need more gum, I'm going to order a gazillion of it. So it's becoming more and more my go-to. So that's great. And I look forward to seeing kind of the other places you start to find information that you can connect there and continue to utilize this. So thanks for jumping on, and thanks for building something that's pretty cool.
I appreciate that. Thank you guys for having us on.